Welcome to the haunting world of Paranormal M, where mysteries are revealed and fears come alive. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to stay connected to our stories. The next chilling tale is waiting for you. Strange paranormal activity going on at my partner's granddad's flat. Recently, me and my partner have been hearing random banging noises throughout the whole flat to the point that we check to make sure the front door is locked and search every room just to see whether or not anything has changed position. Or maybe you might notice something odd. We left the lounge door open the other night, and once we woke up it was closed. That was the first time I've ever been like the little spoon. The thing that has brought me to share my experience with you on Reddit was to ask whether people believe in paranormal activity during hours of light. That's because this afternoon, around 12:30 p.m., I was lying in my bed with my heavily pregnant partner just watching some TV. We're both trying to recover from an illness. Not COVID, just a sort of shitty cold and flu. But all of a sudden our ears felt like they had a buzzing sensation. So my partner suggested turning down the TV. I responded, I'd rather just turn the TV off. And as soon as I said off, it suddenly switched off by itself. And the free view box was still lit green. So that was on. Next thing, her dog Mimi is staring at something right next to my right side of the bed, and I felt a surreal, cold tingling, a shivering, a weird sensation all throughout my body. Pretty much freaked out now. Other things seemed to happen, such as the kitchen light flickering, taking longer to turn on at night. Unexplained knocks and bangs. Mostly sound like the front door, which we keep locked, or in the kitchen. The dog sometimes looks around the room as if she's following something and also barks and growls towards whatever it is. My partner's heard someone come in through the front door. Heard them making a cup of tea, thinking her granddad had come home, but turned out no one was there. The dog's brush, which we keep on the top shelf in the lounge, it had ended up on the floor the next morning. When we record around the room with the flash on the camera, you can see light orbs often around rooms in the flat. We're staying at her granddad's vacant flat whilst he stays elsewhere, due to coronavirus going on. Does anyone else believe in spirits or ghosts? And do you believe they're harmless to us humans living here in the physical world? My mom's house. We moved into my mom's house when I was around 10. Initially, we never noticed anything strange going on. But I'd say things started happening in the first year of living there. I don't know how many ghosts are there, only that there's one, and we all call it Rosie. My 6-year-old brother was the first one to mention anything. See, when you entered my bedroom, there was a window on the wall straight across from the door. You had to pass my room to get to my brother's room, and if the door is open, you can see the window. He ran to me crying one day, saying he saw a girl in my room in the front of the window. He said that she had shoulder-length hair and glasses. This could be nothing more than a childhood imagination, but he was definitely pretty spooked by it. The second thing I remember was a while later, and probably the thing that scared me most. My older sister convinced me to switch bedrooms with her. That's because I had the master, and it was bigger than hers. Our house was one of those houses that's halfway underground. So even though it was, all the same floor, some of the windows were ground level and some weren't. The room I moved into is the creepiest room in the house. I had my bed positioned under a window, which was not quite ground level. Nothing could reach it from the outside. It was just way too high. One night, I'm laying in the bed trying to sleep, and all of a sudden something knocked on the window. It's right above my head. Naturally, I was fucking terrified. I was like 11. I jumped out of the bed and ran to my sister's room and told her. And, of course, she didn't believe me. A couple of days later, it happened again. Only this time, she was in the room with me. She definitely heard it. She opened the window and looked around and was yelling that if somebody was messing with the window, they'd better stop. It wasn't rocks being thrown or anything. It was the very distinct sound of rapping on a window. Unmistakable. Another time in that room, I'm sitting on the couch and they're reading a book. Cat was sleeping next to me and I had a bunch of school papers laid out in the bed. As I was reading, I heard them rustling around, but I didn't look up from the books because I assumed it was my cat. It took a couple of moments for me to realize my cat was next to me. There were no drafts that could possibly make them move. I immediately left the room. A few days later, I casually mentioned it to my sister. She told me that she'd had creepy things happen to her in that room too. She said that she had a couple of pencils on her shelf, and that one day it just flew off. Not across the room or anything, it wasn't far, she just said it fell in front of the shelf. That there had been just a tiny bit of momentum behind it. I can't really say whether that's 100% true or not, given I wasn't there. But the things I've experienced in the house, I believe it. Over the years, we've had all kinds of little things happen in the house. There's been times the kitchen cabinets have opened. Not in a scary, dramatic way, like in scary movies when you walk into the kitchen and every single cabinet is wide open. It wasn't like that at all. I'd be sitting on the couch and hear the tiniest squeak of the cabinets. Walk into the kitchen and one would be like halfway open. We've had doors open and close and the TV go on and off, things like that. Sometimes I'll sit watching TV and the entire cable box will go off. Once I've rolled my eyes and said out loud, "Turn it back on, Rosie," then I shit you not, started to boot up. That one couldn't be a coincidence, but it's cooler to believe that the ghost listened to me. Now for my personal favorite. This happened 2 or 3 years ago and my current boyfriend lived there with me before we moved out. We were both 18 and were sitting on the couch watching a movie. It was maybe midnight. And at this point, my sister had a daughter and I was pregnant myself. So there were baby toys there for when my niece would visit. Among those toys was one of those activity centers for babies to pull up on and play, like a little table. Well, this thing had been going off for a while, just making all kinds of noises and playing music. I definitely chalked this up to the ghost because it did this all the time. But it never ever did that until we moved into my mom's house. I guess it was getting on my boyfriend's nerves because eventually he says, "Shut the fuck up." Has all kinds of pre-programmed phrases and shit like baby toys do, and before it goes off, it will say bye-bye. That's what it did after he said that. I jokingly said, "Oh, Rosie's gonna get you tonight." So later, we're in my bedroom, laying down trying to sleep. In the corner, there's a window right next to a closet door. Now, I don't know if this came from the window or the closet, but suddenly there was a really loud thump from the corner. My boyfriend jolted up and all I said was, "I told you." Needless to say, he slept on the couch that night, laughing my ass off. Another time, my boyfriend's little puppy ran past the toy into the kitchen. The toy said, "Run, little dog, run." Fucking freaked my boyfriend out too. I don't live there anymore, but I do visit a lot. Maybe a month ago I went over there, and I never knock when I walk in, so I walked in the front door one morning and my mom was sleeping on the couch. I asked her why she was on the couch instead of downstairs in her room. She said that she could see a little super dim ball of light just hovering over her dresser, and it scared her. There's literally nothing that could have caused this because of one, my parents' bedroom's in the basement. There's one single tiny window which have blackout blinds on them. And two, even the little tiny light from the computer monitor my stepdad put black tape over because he swears up and down he can't sleep with the light from it. So there you have it. Not terribly terrifying or anything. Rosie has never really given anyone bad vibes, and whatever is there, I don't think it means anybody any harm. I suppose this could all just be chalked up to something explainable too. But personally, I don't think so. Neither does my mom. She's experienced all kinds of things in the house too. Ghost of my friend. A little backstory of my friends. I met my now best friend at the end of middle school. We hung out almost every weekend. We'd chilled at his mom's house most of the time, and she would work third shift. So when we hung out, we were usually alone. He has a brother who's only a year younger than us, so I became very close with him as well. We always presumed his house to be haunted as we would hear noises and stuff, and all those were literally across the street from a cemetery. Little bumps, footsteps coming up the stairs, etc. Nothing ever happened, and it never seemed threatening. So we actually still react, but we'd be less and less freaked out by it. Time goes by, and we continue to hang out regularly every weekend at their mom's place. Same situation. Their mom works third shift. We're alone most of the time, and small paranormal-ish things happen every so often. We're probably freshmen or sophomores at this time. We would attempt to play online on Call of Duty, but their Wi-Fi wasn't the greatest, so we'd often play zombies, which we also enjoyed a lot. My friend's brother had to get up early the following day, so on this particular night, went to bed a little bit earlier than me. We continued to play video games for about another hour or two, and we decided to hit the hay. We would sleep in his living room where they had a large L-shaped couch. They would set up the cushions in a way where the dogs couldn't climb up and ruin the couch when they weren't using it. So we had to just take everything down and set up the cushions. As this happened, I heard the floor creak and an odd sound from the end of the hall. Just a weird, moanish sound, as if he had just woken up and was tired. He had just done that. My friend didn't hear it, but I immediately looked down the hall and saw his brother walking across the hall to the bathroom. Not breaking sight of the hallway, I let out a little chuckle, then proceeded down the hall when I realized I hadn't noticed anything else happening. No sound of a door closing, no lights had turned on or anything. I reached the bathroom. The door slightly cracked, so I quietly called his name to check on him. No answer. I say it again, a little louder. No answer, but I hear shuffling in his room. I go over and I see him turning over, and he's in bed, and my eyes widen and freeze. I realize I hadn't looked away from the hallway and never saw him return to his room, but it was him walking to the bathroom. I was freaked out and explained to my friend what I saw. He was, well, equally freaked out. And that was a first for us. And not only that, it was a first for the house. For about a week following that, for that matter. Still gives me the chills when I think back. A glowing figure woke me and walked through my wall. Repost. I was about 11 or 12 years old when this happened. One night, I was asleep and I hear my name. Then somebody grabbing my shoulder. I was sleeping on my side facing the wall, so I roll over and turn around and I see this tall person standing right beside me. He had a slight green glow around his whole body. Also, I'd like to mention it was very early in the morning. There was a tiny bit of light, but not a lot. But I could clearly see someone or something standing right next to it. As my eyes adjust to that, sort of light, with no response, the person didn't have any features, at least any that I could see, but I could tell he was looking right at me. After that, and realized it wasn't my dad, I laid there frozen, unable to move for about 5 seconds of him just staring at me. Turns around and I see with my own eyes it just walks through the wall. Even though it was dark, I could see it clearly because of the green glow around him. Also, would like to mention I always slept with my door closed, and after he left through the wall, I'd go to run out of the room and the door was still shut. I immediately ran to the bathroom, locked the door, threw up. I felt super sick. I was drenched in sweat. Stayed in the bathroom till it was light out before I went back to my room. I also asked everyone in my family if they went to my room that night. No one had. I have an unexplainable paranormal experience. This occurred when I was in 4th grade. My school had 2 floors, and my classroom was located in the 2nd floor. Most of the classroom is made up of windows. Almost 2 walls worth of them, too. It was in the afternoon, and we were doing independent working time. As a kid, it was difficult for me to stay on task with my work, so I caught myself staring out the window. And out of nowhere, I spot a weird-looking aircraft. I was still a kid, so I assumed it was an airplane. But the more I noticed, the more I believed it wasn't an airplane, but maybe an aircraft. An aircraft not from here. The aircraft was a dark shade of gray. It looked like the classic circle UFO, as if it had been squished and then extended. It also had some long, fin-like wings. One on each side, and one on the top. It also had very dark tinted windows. I kept staring at it with confusion. It made no noise, and it was passing right by my classroom window. I was in shock. I then just looked around my class to see if I wasn't the only one noticing it. But they all had their heads down. It wasn't the type as in they were doing their work, not at all. It was as if they were shut down like a robot. They had their heads sort of down and hanging. They looked lifeless. Reminds me of me at school. I kept looking back and forth. I would look at the aircraft, then around the classroom, and it felt so strange. I remember feeling so nauseous. I looked back at the window, and it vanished. In front of the window was a clear view, so I had to see it fly off or pass completely through. But it was gone. Not even a split second passed, then the bell rang for recess. That was when all the kids perked up and began heading out. They got up as if nothing happened. During recess, I began to tell my friends what's happened. All they said was, "What are you talking about?" They all just brushed it off. I kept trying to tell others what happened, and they just didn't believe me. I'm currently in my junior year of high school, and to this day I believe it was a UFO or something paranormal. I always feel kind of uneasy when I think about it. Haunted apartment. This is a story my family told me. I was too young to remember this apartment, but when I was a little kid, my grandparents lived in company housing. My grandfather worked in an oil refinery in Louisiana. He lived in the previous manager's apartment on the top floor of one of the refinery's administration buildings. The previous manager, Jack, was a very, eccentric man. People knew him to be very private. He had secretly knocked out a wall panel in the apartment off the laundry room and expanded the apartment into the attic. He added an extra bedroom, and that's where he spent a lot of his time. Anyway, one day Jack didn't show up for work. People were pretty concerned, but they looked in his apartment and he wasn't there, so they assumed that he had left. A few days later, people below reported a bad smell in their office. The fire department and police came, and they found Jack's body in the secret room that he had built. No one had seen it before because the room was behind a hidden door. He had been dead for almost 5 days. My grandfather was the man they brought in to replace Jack. My mother was out of college at the time and went to Louisiana to visit her parents. My grandma made Jack's room into a guest bedroom. That's because the apartment was small and, well, they needed the space. My mother was aware of what happened, but my grandmother told her that the room was all right. That's where my mother stayed. The first night she told my grandmother that she wanted the bedroom door left open so she could get to the bathroom easier. And in the middle of the night, she woke up to the jiggle of the doorknob. She turned around to look and the door was shut. She panicked but laid there to see if it would stop. When it didn't stop, she decided to face her fears. She ran to the door and opened it. Nothing was there, so she went and slept on the couch. Another night, my mother was sleeping in Jack's room. She had a dream that a dead man was on the ceiling watching her. His eyes were bulging, staring at her. The next day, she described the man and what he was wearing. I think she said it was a flannel shirt and overalls and a certain brand of work boot. Multiple people told her that's what Jack wore almost every day. The description matched. Ghosts or no ghosts, that room was a creepy place to be. Supposedly, it never quite smelled right. And a small shout out to a couple of people a while ago that cared enough to mention that I should stop smoking. Random, but thank you. I appreciate it. Echoes of my dog, who is still alive. My dog is very old, but still alive. She's a 13-pound miniature poodle who's about 15 years old. That's to say she sleeps a lot. Most of the time, really, but especially at night. Last night I'm in bed reading in the dark when I thought I felt my dog walking around my bed to try to jump onto it. Felt the vibrations of her movement and heard the pitter-patter of her feet. Getting into my bed at that time would have been unusual for her because she'd already laid down to sleep. What caught my attention was when I thought she'd actually jumped into the bed, but then there was no dog. I froze for a moment, then turned the lights on. My dog was sleeping in her bed on the floor and probably hadn't moved for hours. Something didn't feel right. So I sat up and looked around for a minute. Then I looked over at my rat cage, which is high off the ground. I saw that one of my rats was outside the cage, sitting on top of it as if she'd been placed there. It's a metal cage, and no one escaped before or since. That gives me a crazy memory. Couldn't have been a rat trying to get on my bed, because once she'd reached the floor, there would have been no way for her to get back into the cage. I don't know what was going on, but I thought of a few possibilities. One, I've been sick and dehydrated, could have been a hallucination. Can't explain the rat, though. 2, some entity was messing with me and my animals. 3, a residual haunting of my dog getting in my bed, and an escaped rat. And I can't hold my mouth shut, and I have to tell you a funny story. So when I was a little kid, my brother had rats. They had a particular smell and a particularly large, unavoidable appendage. That was my thought on the rats when I was a kid. But, long story short, there's about 8 of them. And one rat, for whatever reason, he had named Jeffrey Dahmer. Don't know if you can tell where the story's gonna go. Short story even shorter, One day there's only one rat left in the cage. And instead of possibly them escaping, I hope some of them escaped, but there was half of a rat sticking out of Jeffrey Dahmer's mouth. Yuck. Ugh. Guardian spirit or ghost. A spirit, ghost, or angel may have saved my mother's life. Some background information. This is a story my mother told me a couple of years ago. It's when she was just out of college. She was very poor, and so she moved into a bad part of town until she could save some money. There had been a series of break-ins and rapes nearby, as well as several murders. No suspects had been arrested. One day, she's carrying her laundry in from the laundromat and a dog appeared at her door. She said it looked like a white German shepherd with no collar, but healthy, so it was likely someone's pet. The dog made eye contact but showed no other signs of aggression. She let it sniff her hand and it wagged its tail once. Seemed friendly enough, and thinking it was lost, she put it in and just gave it some food and water. The only food that she had at the time were some hot dogs. Pun. So she put a bowl of water on the floor and grabbed a hot dog to feed to the dog. The dog watched her the whole time, and it didn't seem really that interested in the hot dog, but did gently sort of take it in its mouth, turn around, and calmly walk out of the apartment. Later that night, my mother heard a noise from the bushes outside my bedroom window. She was afraid somebody was trying to break in. She then heard barking and yelling coming from that same area. She knew that she would have had to immediately call the police, but was too scared to move. She waited until the noise stopped, and then she called. When the police arrived, they found her window screen had been cut open with a knife. There was blood and white dog fur all over the bushes and fur covering her nearby front porch. My mother realized that the dog had slept out front of her apartment all night until the man tried to break in. She believes that the dog was a guardian angel sent to protect her. And since then, she's been kind to every dog she meets. I'm not sure what really happened there, but whatever that dog was, my mother was very fortunate to have it on her side. And I like the idea of guardian angels enjoying a hot dog. That's wholesome. Unless you're vegan, then it was a vegan hot dog. Imagine what you wish. Is this an experience, or am I just paranoid? So for background, I live with my family and we all find paranormal stuff ridiculous and illogical. Right. I was never really too firm in my refusal of anything else being out there, but I am skeptical. But, benefit of the doubt, right? Nothing's impossible, yada yada. But I thought more likely than not, people are just making things up when they talk about paranormal experiences. I had never experienced anything paranormal, but one of my friends swears that this shit is real, and that they've experienced unexplainable things. I should probably go to her about this if I'm being honest, but she's out of the country. She isn't online. So I thought, being the lurker that I am, there must be somewhere on here that talk about this stuff, and here I am, so. I'm stalling. Okay. So myself and another friend who also doesn't believe in this stuff, we went round her house and started playing some games. Not like Ouija board or anything, because what's the point in buying something for stuff we don't believe in, right? We were playing these stupid fucking games and making fun of them and all this crap. Eventually, my friend just started saying stuff out loud, asking stupid questions and doing like a mock ghost session thingy. It was pretty funny. We were kind of bored though. And so everything's fine until she asks whatever to start doing things, like pushing objects off shelves and knocking pictures off walls or moving things or turning off lights, right? So nothing's happening, and I think it's pretty funny, but she's looking kind of stupid and just speaking to the air like that, so I join in. And we're laughing, and it's funny until her water bottle fucking falls off of her desk. Weird coincidence, kind of scary, but it was probably the wind or gravity. There's so many explanations there. Wasn't much water left in it anyway, so barely weighed anything. Her bedside light kind of flickers too, but again, electricity, power cuts, you catch my drift. I've kind of lost the mood, and I'm feeling a little bit creeped out because of weird timing, but the stuff just eggs my friend on. She's grinning and laughing while joking about things touching us. Like giving permission, I guess. I was a little weirded out, but again, not exactly anything I firmly believe in, and even if I did, she can't give permission for me, right? So, it's her funeral. That was my thought process anyway. So we kind of stopped the jokes and games there and decided to watch a movie instead. Whole thing just kind of left my mind, to be honest. I went home, showered, went to sleep, everything was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary at all. I had no dreams, I wasn't scared, and I'm genuinely just so confused right now. So anyway, I wake up and like my forearm kind of aches and hurts a bit. But it could just be a morning pain or whatever it would be, and it would go away, so I go to the kitchen, make myself some breakfast, get dressed and everything. And then when I'm changing my shirt, I see fucking like scratches or something. And like bruises and stuff on my arm, and I just can't, right? So I'm confused, and I think that they were there yesterday, and I didn't do anything yesterday to get these, so what the fuck? Texted my friend who I was with yesterday, and she's confused as fuck as well. You've got a potty mouth, ma'am. And it's totally weirded out. You can't hear it, but my gecko also just yelled. He agrees. So her friend's also totally weirded out, and she shrugs it off and then jokes about it being like a ghost or like something from yesterday. Kind of just went, haha, yeah, and we both went offline. So I kind of just sat there for a bit, and no thoughts, just this building feeling of panic. And just, well, no. So I just went outside, and here I am still. I texted my ghost-obsessed friend, but they didn't reply, so this is my last resort. No breathing. The Toilet Paper Ghost. I got deja vu reading that name. That was until this incident occurred in 2015. I was visiting a friend in Portland for the weekend. Halloween weekend, as cliche as that sounds. The house my friend lived in with several other roommates was old. Everything creaked and groaned, especially at night. I wish I knew how old it was exactly, but I don't. On my initial tour of the house, I noticed it had a laundry chute from the upstairs bathroom leading to the basement cellar. That's where their laundry machines and a bunch of old spooky furniture from residents past moldered. Furniture from residents past moldered. Is that a word? And sat. Molded. Grew mold. Getting covered in dust and spider webs as well. They never touched the old stuff, but it was there. I was in my 20s then and was getting ready to go out with my buddy to a basketball game. The Trailblazers versus the Suns. And then maybe at bars. While putting on my Halloween makeup in the bathroom mirror, I felt this odd sensation, this stillness. Then, in the pit of my stomach, I felt anxious butterflies. The kind of thing you feel when you're playing hide and seek and you can see the seeker from where you're hiding. There's something like moments away from finding you, you know? Kind of frozen in this trance for a moment when all of a sudden a full roll of toilet paper tipped out from the rest of the pack. Went onto its side in the floor and began to unravel. With absolutely no draft in that bathroom, no fan, no gust of wind. This brand new roll of toilet paper just began to move and unravel by itself. It was unraveling down the laundry chute. Stood there, eyeliner in hand, poised against my eyelid, watching this teepee unravel through the mirror in which I was doing my makeup. When it finally made it to the end of the roll, the cardboard inner roll sort of just spun around in a circle for what felt like forever and then stopped. I kept standing there for a moment, unsure what just happened. Suddenly, my friend knocks on the bathroom door, which startled me. "Hey, is everything okay in there?" I came out looking super pale, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I told him what happened, and he looked at me funny. Told me he was just in the basement and saw a ream of toilet paper come streaming down and fold over itself in a perfect zigzag. He led me downstairs, and sure enough, I see the unraveled roll of TP neatly folded over itself, with no one side really being any longer than the other side. He kept telling me, "Seriously, you're telling me you didn't do that?" And he finally believed me after some convincing. He had thought I was doing it and came up to check on me. I was just playing around with toilet paper for some reason, I guess, is what he was thinking. But neither of us had been doing anything to provoke this incident, and he was digging through his laundry looking for his son's shirt. I understand it completely. Having read this, you'd think it's the stupidest incident you've ever heard of. It happened to me, and I know how stupid it is. But to me and my friend, it was crazy and bizarre at the time. Nowadays, my friend and I just laugh about it because why? What kind of funny little haunting was that? Maybe some presence wanted to play a classic Halloween night prank on us and TP the living room. The living. But to this day, I feel like some presence was playing around with that toilet paper. My friend didn't own the house and had only lived there for a few months, and never go to check and ask the main owner if there's other strange things that had happened there before. But I don't care what anyone tells me. I count this as a hilarious paranormal experience, with what my friend and I now call the toilet paper ghost. Sleep paralysis involving vibrational entity. This started off with me relaxing and watching one of my favorite shows, King of the Hill. You have good taste, sir or ma'am. During this, I fell asleep unintentionally. I entered a dream state. I thought I was still awake, and eventually I would realize I couldn't move. I fell asleep laying on my stomach. Couldn't move anything but my eyes. It felt like something was pushing me down. I moved my eyes toward the TV, and I could still see and hear everything going on in the snow. In the show I was watching. Things started to get dark and blurry. I could feel something poking me in my rear end. That's when I really started to get scared. I was stuck in this position and felt powerless, but I kept telling myself, "You gotta turn over, you gotta turn over." The feeling that this entity felt so entirely real and physical. I tried yelling but couldn't. Suddenly I felt that I could move my left arm. With all my might, I did a punching motion while twisting over onto my back, and that's when I saw the entity for a few seconds right before waking up. The best way for me to describe it was vibrational. The entity could feel that I had seen it, and it got up and quickly shot out of the room. It was like a big, dark, blurry, vibrational thing. Think about how invisibility is portrayed in movies and TV. It was like in that. Almost like a cloak in Harry Potter, but a little bit darker. Right as this entity shot out of my room, that's when I had basically just awoken from this dream state. One of the freakiest parts about this was how everything in the room was identical in waking life and in dream life. Everything from how my water bottle was positioned to the episode of the show I was watching. While I was in this dream state, I could make out details of every little thing in the room. It was vivid. I was really shaken up from this, and now afraid to fall asleep in this room. Luckily, I haven't had any sleep paralysis since then. Something I can never forget. My mom grew up in a haunted house. My great-grandmother Emily owned a house on Glenwood Avenue in Owasso, Michigan. Owasso. She was fairly well off, so she let my mom's mother move into the house when she was falling on hard times with her husband and their kids. and my great-grandma Emily moved out. Assuming that's what Gigi means. I'm going to try to make this as easy to understand as possible to who is who, and going to try to lay out who moved into the house first. My grandma Pat, which is my mom's mom, has 3 kids. Charlotte, who's my mom, Chris, and James. She was married to a man named Butch who also has 3 kids. Sandy, Lee, and Greg. These are all events that my mom and Grandma Pat both separately told me about throughout my whole life. I'm now 22, and I've told my friends about them throughout the years, and I've been reading these Reddit posts. And I've decided to share the experiences that I've learned about. They're 100% true. So before I start speaking about what happened before my mom, I want to share a bit about what happened to my Gigi Emily when she lived there. She told my grandma that some strange things had been happening in the house. When she was in bed, it felt like a cat walked over her and she had no animals. Also, she told my grandma that something would tug her blanket at the end of her bed, and she would have to clutch onto it or it would be pulled off. Water would also run in the bathroom constantly, and she would have to get up and turn it off throughout the night. My mom moved into the house, and she made some friends around the neighborhood. They would tease her about how a witch lived there before and did witchcraft in the basement. Said that the house in general was haunted. My mom brushed it off, thinking that they were just trying to scare her. My mom said that her and her stepsister Sandy shared a room. She said that red glowing eyes would look at them in the closet. My mom said that they would be so scared that they would sleep in the same bed, and Sandy even ran and flicked on the light and moved the toys around in the closet, thinking it was just a light. But as soon as the light would flick back off, Sandy got back into bed with my mom. They would reappear. My mom told me that they would pull long black hairs from the drywall that was leading to the staircase, and that the drywall would literally just crumble. I just accidentally did that the other day. Know where the hair came from, though. My dog. Oh, that's plaster. My mom told me that one night my grandma Pat was waiting for her husband Butch to get home. She was watching TV in the living room and she was laying on a pull-out bed. She sat up to get a drink of water and had her feet on the floor, and something grabbed her ankle and squeezed. Shook it so hard from underneath the bed that it left a bruise. She looked under the bed thinking it was one of those kids that she had seen, that nothing was there. So she yelled for my mom to come out there with her until her husband got home. She told my mom what happened, and they were both terrified. I asked my grandma about this, and she told me the exact same thing. My grandma also told me that she'd seen large black figures in the home multiple times. Just got off the phone with my grandma to try and get everything as accurate as possible. She didn't have much time because she was at work, but she did tell me that a man hanged himself in the basement, and she would see things in the kitchen a lot, like a large black figure. Basement door was in the kitchen. She said that my mom would too, to the point that she would scream, cry multiple times from the ages of 2, 2.5. She told me that they moved out once when my mom was younger because of the weird shit that was going on. Someone else moved in for a while, but they had to move back several years later, which was when she was grabbed from under the bed. She said something grabbed my ankle and shook the hell out of it. My great-grandma Emily owned the house and the entire time, which is why they ended up back there. She also said that her son James had seen these red glowing eyes, and all the other kids would hear and see things constantly. But after things got physical with her when it grabbed her ankle, she got the hell out of there for good. She also said that renters wouldn't stop moving out of the house very quickly until somebody purchased it some years later. They had it blessed. She thinks that are still there, living there to this day. When I was around 15, my mom told me about this again because it was all so scary and interesting to me. I'd have my mom retell me everything that happened in the house all the time. Ended up finding the house online. While I'm searching through articles to see if any information was available about the house, I found that right down the street was Rosevere Park and Woods, and it's said to be one of the most haunted places in Owasso. I'm not sure if it has any correlation with the house, I just thought that it was strange. You can read about all the stories about the park with a quick Google search. A Marilyn Monroe painting. When I was around 16, my stepdad worked as a mover. Someone who moved gave him this colorful hand-painted canvas of Marilyn Monroe. Took it home for me as a gift. My stepdad spent a lot of time down in the workshop in our basement, at least when he wasn't at work. One day when my mom and him were down there, I came down to ask my mom a question. I saw the canvas sitting against the wall and I asked where it had come from. My stepdad explained to me that he was going to give it to me as a gift, but for some reason my mom didn't like it at all. She had no reason. My mom tried telling me that she didn't want me to have it, but since I had already seen it and wanted it, it would have been kind of ludicrous to keep it from me, since it was technically for me. I ended up hanging it in my room above my bed. And by the way, we had a ranch-style house, and my bedroom was at one end of that house, and the house is basically long and kind of narrow. Our basement was open and the size of a long, narrow house. It was unfinished with brick walls that were painted bright orange. Had concrete floors. Had 5 lights on the ceiling that went straight down to the basement with drawstrings sort of hanging from them to flick them on and off. It had 2 rooms off of the long corridor, both unfinished. One was the workshop and one was where the water heater was. The staircase to our basement was directly on the opposite side of the house from my bedroom. That night I had 3 horrible, stressful nightmares. Like the ones that make you wake up trying to catch your breath. This continued for the next 3 days. In one of my dreams, my bed sank through the floor into the very back of the basement directly below my bedroom. The basement was pitch black. I knew something was in there with me. It felt like I couldn't breathe because of sheer panic. Got up from my bed and instantly started rushing to try to get up from the stairs on the opposite side of the basement with something that felt so sinister chasing right behind me. I knew the creature was small and black because I had seen it when I reached the bottom step. That's because of the light that came through the crack of the basement door. I woke up before it could touch me, sweating, trying to catch my breath. And for whatever reason, I connected my dreams to the painting by the 3rd day. It was in my head by the 2nd day, but I ignored it because I liked the painting. Thought it was kind of ridiculous to even think about not fully knowing spirits could be connected to objects. I've always been super intuitive. Several of my aunts and great-aunts on my dad's side, who passed away from cancer when I was 11. So I didn't really see his family much. They were self-proclaimed witches. I think it's been something that runs in the family to this day. As crazy as that sounds, it's pretty true. My mom was a Christian woman, and we would attend a Baptist church basically my whole life at that point. I told my mom and laughed and said that it was probably just in my head and that everybody had nightmares once in a while. I knew it was connected to the painting, so I asked her to put it into her room. She thought it was silly, but ultimately agreed with, "All right, we'll see." Placed the painting in her room against the wall nearest the side of the bed she slept in. And shockingly, she too had 3 horrible, stressful dreams. I remember her saying that one was about some kittens that were very sick with crusted shut eyes and flies all over them. She said it made her have an overwhelming feeling of complete and utter dread. She told me that she knew it was the painting too. Understood exactly what I was talking about. She immediately got it out of our house and the dream stopped. I asked her several years later what she did with it, because I'm 22 now. She told me she ended up putting a painting in the trunk of her car and kind of got sketched out within a few days of having it in there and ended up stopping on the side of the road while driving, putting it at the end of somebody's driveway for the garbage man to pick up. My sister seen my dead dad 2 weeks before she died. My family moved into a house in Schwartz Creek. That's in 2004. It was my dad Ronald, my mom Charlotte, my sisters Shira and Chelsea, my brothers Ronnie and Dylan, and I. My name is Sabrina. I'm now 22, and this all happened between the ages of 9 and 11. And everything was fine until I think like 2007. My dad started getting super sick and jaundiced, and basically his skin and the whites of his eyes were turning yellow. His mom came over and they were searching online trying to figure out what could be wrong with him. The only thing that would come up was articles on cancer. He got checked at his doctor's, and lo and behold, he had an aggressive form of pancreatic liver cancer. My dad was super healthy before all this, so it was a huge shock. A few months later, my sister Shira, my username is named after her, started to get sick as well. She was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a form of cancer. Really long story short, and if you want to know more, you can Google the city and our names and read some news pretty fucked up. My dad ended up passing away 2 years later on March 27th, 2009. But it was only after my sister went into remission because he told her that he wasn't going to die if she was sick. After his passing, my other older sister, Chelsea, moved out of state to live with my Uncle James in Washington. So fast forward a bit, and at this point, my dad had been passed away for nearly 6 months. Shira, the sister that had cancer, was home alone. My sister Chelsea told me that Shira called her frantically sobbing, saying that she had just seen my dad in the kitchen with his head down crying. She was freaked out, saying that something had to be wrong and that she didn't know what the hell was going on. 2 weeks later, Shira ended up in the hospital. The cancer had spread basically through her whole body. She was in the hospital for a few days, and I just turned 11, so my mom didn't want me at the hospital, so I really had no clue that she was even admitted. I was just at a friend's house for a couple of days, which wasn't unusual for me. My brother Ronnie was at the hospital with my mom because he was 17. Ronnie told me that Shira had a tube down her throat, but she could still use her phone to type and say what she wanted to say, and she was awake but weak. She pointed to the corner of the room, trying to communicate, so he gave her the phone. She typed out to him that heaven and God were real, and that my dad was in the room along with my dad's dad, who passed away in like 2001. He asked her what they wanted, and she pointed to herself. She passed away within the next 24 hours on September 20th, 2009, at the age of 19. I know you can say that Shira was probably delusional or whatever because she was about to die, but get this. While all of this was going on in the hospital, Chelsea was still living in Washington, and she got the earliest flight that she could get back to Michigan. The night Shira died was the night before Chelsea was leaving to come home. Chelsea was on the phone with my mom and Ronnie constantly, so she was up super late and she had an early flight. She said she was just exhausted from trying to make sure she knew everything that was going on with Shira in the hospital, that she accidentally fell asleep for about an hour. She said that she had a dream that my dad and his cousin Jennifer, she was about her second cousin and we didn't really know her, but she had died from a heroin overdose 2 months before my dad passed away. Came to her in a dream saying that Shira died and that she's now with them now, and that she's okay. The dream woke Chelsea up because last she knew, Shira was alive, and it freaked her out. Just a few moments after she woke up, my brother Ronnie called her saying Shira just passed away, and all Chelsea could say is that she already knew. Told her about their dream. I wanted to add this as well. On January 10th, 2010, that house caught fire. My mom went sledding with my little brother Dylan and my cousin Taylor. My sister and I were both sleeping on my mom's bed because we were all up very late the night before. We were dead asleep until my sister woke me up saying the house was on fire, that we needed to get out immediately. I was very confused and I couldn't see anything at all, not even the daylight through the window. But we ended up getting out because we knew the house so well that we didn't have to see to get out. She had third-degree burns on both her hands from opening the door. We both went to the hospital for smoke inhalation and got treated for the burns. Both very heavy sleepers. We awake, or not we awake, but rather we were awake until about 3 a.m. People started stopping to help us when we got to the front door. That's because smoke was pouring out of the house. Literally would have died otherwise. The doctor said that we had about 30 seconds left before the smoke killed us. Chelsea told me that somebody was saying, "Chelsea, wake up." That was until she got up and realized what was happening. Mind you, nobody was there and I was still asleep. Again, if you don't believe me, which is super fucked up because why would I lie about any of this? We look up 8070 Moorish Road, Swartz Creek house fire. Article wasn't fully correct because it said 3 people were there. But it was only me and my sister, and we were so shook up that we didn't know if my mom, brother, etc. were there or not. My brother slept on a couch a lot of the time to be closer to my mom's bedroom, so I thought they were still sleeping, or possibly dead since we couldn't see anything at all. That was until we noticed my mom's truck was gone from the driveway. We broke the window to try to wake them up because the smoke that was pouring out of the door was too thick to even go near it. The fire was also ruled electrical. For the people that are wondering how I'm doing now, I'm doing fairly well. I have a son, he's 2.5 now. I've been with his dad for 4 years. I'm okay emotionally other than wondering where I would be right now if my dad was still here, where my older sister would be too. If she would ever find love and who she would choose to be with. If she was meant to have any kids, and she would be 30 now. Shira was the sibling that I was closest to. I would sleep in her bed with her every night because I was just so attached to her. She was 8 years older than me, and so she pretty much thought I was super annoying. But I just wanted to be just like her. Copied her style, listened to the music she liked, and we had a very special bond, and it's truly a heartache knowing that she isn't here anymore. And knowing that she never got to experience life at all. I remember at my dad's funeral, she sat next to me, and we both crying, and she said, "It'll be okay, sister." I'm only 22, and I feel like I haven't experienced a fraction of life yet, so knowing that she was gone before her 20th birthday is absolutely crushing. It's upsetting that my dad won't be able to walk him down the aisle at my wedding someday. I think my dad took a bit of a favoritism towards me because he would always tell me how special I was to him. He'd do extra things for me and with me. He didn't do that with the older siblings. Like picking me up from elementary school to go shopping. Just him and I. Or give me little gifts or let me know he loved me. I feel like a piece of me was taken that year. Something I'll never fully recover from until we're hopefully reunited again. I don't think that I would have met the father of my child if things didn't pan out the way they did, and so I do think about everything leading up to having my son and put into consideration that maybe everything happened for a reason, even if it was in a horrific way. Try to take the good from the bad, and I'm thankful to still have my mom and other siblings here to this day. A woman that attended our church was possessed. It's almost 5 a.m., so please forgive me if this isn't perfect. This story is true, and my mom told it to me plenty of times over the years. I also know this sounds super far-fetched because we only hear about this type of shit on TV, but it actually happened. When I was a baby, my mom attended a small, close-knit Baptist church in Flint, Michigan. The church had only about 15 or 20 people that would come regularly. So, everybody knew each other. Pastor was close to her family in particular because my dad was in and out of the jail constantly. My dad didn't attend church, but my mom was a dedicated Christian. All of this information came directly to my mom from our pastor and Valerie herself. I was born in August of 1997, so I'm assuming this took place circa 1998 because my mom said that I was a baby at the time. She was still breastfeeding me. My mom befriended a thin, middle-aged woman named Valerie. They were newer to her church. She would come now and again because her husband started to come regularly. Before I got into all of this, just know that I understand all witchcraft is believed to be good, etc. and all that. Everybody has their own beliefs, so don't come for me in the comments. Or me. WTBS. Valerie came from a line of witches. She owned various spell books, Ouija boards, and other items that were passed down from her mother and grandma. She practiced black magic religiously. She used her Ouija board daily to make all of her decisions, down to what she ate, what she bought, and what she was going to do for the day. She attended her church a handful of times and decided she wanted to convert to being a Baptist. Baptists don't get involved with black magic, so she decided that she wanted to give up using her book and boards. Our church held services on Sundays and Wednesdays. She started coming more regularly. She started getting sick and vomiting about an hour before each service every week, and she was beginning to see these black figures. She would see them constantly in her house and experiencing a lot of unexplained occurrences in her life every day, and general bad luck. People from our church noticed that she wasn't coming anymore and started to ask her husband if she was okay. That was because she was on the prayer list under unspoken, meaning nobody knew what was going on. Just that, she needed prayers. Eventually, her pastor started to speak to her husband, and her husband told her pastor about her past and how she was vomiting before service every week. He got very concerned and asked if she would come to service even if she got sick. My mom said she would sit in the very back section and literally vomit into a bucket the entire service. And this happened for several weeks until she agreed to attend a meeting with her pastor, her husband, and a few other deacons. After she went into detail about what she was experiencing, they came to the conclusion that she may be possessed. They told her an exorcism may be the only thing to help her. After she agreed, they all left the church to go to her house to collect all of her books and tools she used for many years as the first step to help her. They decided to perform the actual exorcism the following day. During the exorcism, she was sat down on a chair in her church, and as soon as they began reading the Bible, she began foaming at the mouth and growling. She started getting violent, so they had to physically hold her down. But as soon as they did, she started literally throwing the grown men around like... My mom said it was like rag dolls. Mind you, she was 95 or 100 pounds. It took several hours, but they decided to end it because it seemed to have worked. The following couple of days after that, her son was complaining that he was seeing shadows in his room. So our pastor decided to come and just check if accidentally he'd left anything behind. Whatever negative energy or demon that was in her or her house still ended up being attached to a book in her son's room that had a unicorn on it. After they found and removed the black shadows, they all stopped. It's believed that negative energy can hold on to any magical, mystical, or something like that if it's an object. After all that, she attended church without any issues and was still there when we left to go to a different church closer to her house, and I was around 6. And again, all of this information came from my mom, directly from Valerie and her pastor. It's all I can remember right now, and I'll call my mom later today and ask for more details about it. I hadn't talked about it for years. What do you all think about this crazy shit? Still mind-boggled and interested in knowing more details? Unicorn book, huh? My cat had a negative attachment. My fiancé and I, for the past year, approximately have thought something was in our apartment besides just us. Started out with once in a while just hearing different noises and thought it was our cat just knocking something over or maybe a plate just sliding. But any time we would check it out, the cat wasn't in the room. Nothing was moved or fallen over. So over the next months, my fiancé got pregnant. Go into more detail, but all of a sudden my cat was scared to go through the hallway. Started to go through the hallway that divides all the rooms like a bat out of hell to get from the kitchen and living room. And once in a while we would see shadow figures around the same spot. We wouldn't like to be near the spot in particular. We just told each other it's nothing mean to us or doing anything negative towards us, so we just went on with life as always. Got along so good and started getting ready for the baby to be born, but as time went on we started to see more shadows and we just started arguing and we're always on edge. We're always just at odds with each other and just really like hatred towards each other. Act like people we didn't even know anymore. Trying to move this along and still let you know about some things that were happening. And the baby was born and the cat just started acting very standoffish. Kind of just be very annoying and do anything that would upset us, and we thought it was just maybe because the baby was here now, but that wasn't the case. One night I was playing with the baby and I was doing bicycles with him and a bassinet and a melody playing. I would say, "Run, run, run" to my son. And when I heard something else say what I was saying, freaked me out really bad because the cat was acting so bad I actually was trying to find him a new home. And I had had him for 5 years. Turned into a cat that I didn't know, and me and my fiancé were still being very negative towards each other to the point where it was almost finished. But I finally did find my cat at home, and when he left the house, it seemed so much quieter and almost seemed like the house was a new house. Me and my fiancé both thought the same thing about the difference in the house. Stopped arguing, and it's just very pleasant. We both are thinking that something either was attached to the cat or followed him to the new home. We always thought people were just lying on TV when they would say the house felt lighter. But whatever was going on stopped 100% when the cat left. So I'm not exactly sure what was going on, but I'm so happy things worked out, and I almost think my cat did everything on purpose to make me have to get rid of him, or to get whatever is in my home out. Anybody else ever hear anything like this? Let me know. I'm pretty sure that we're not crazy, I think. It's actually a first for me hearing that. My sorority house haunting. I attend college in a small town that has had a sort of colorful history. Student houses are very old and unkept due to the lack of care from landlords. My sorority house lies within the old student houses and looks like a southern plantation home, white with tall pillars and a wraparound porch. This house is 8 bedrooms, 2 kitchens, and 2 bathrooms, so it was a fairly large home. I've never resided in the sorority house personally, but I've spent a great deal of time in that house and have heard countless stories of what I believe are paranormal happenings. My first time at the sorority house was when I was a new member of the sorority. I had no knowledge to the paranormal happenings at this time, by the way. I'd received a tour of the house, which included the bedrooms, common areas, guest room, and attic. The second I stepped up into the second floor, I could feel a change in the atmosphere. The air seemed cold and eerie. My sorority sisters took me down the long, dark hallway, showing me the bedroom, then another bedroom, till we finally reached the end of the hallway. At the end of the hallway was the guest room. This room in particular felt super odd. Maybe it was the strange shape of the room and the fact that the attic door was in that room. Continuing on the house tour, the sisters of the sorority asked if I wanted to see the attic.
I said yes, despite warnings of it being really creepy and unsettling. I followed one of the sisters up the steep, dark stairs. The light switch was at the very top, so we used a flashlight to find our way up, which only added to the scary feeling of the attic. Once we got to the top and the light was switched on, I noticed that the walls were covered in cardboard that had a bunch of writing all over it. This attic was so strange, it felt like it didn't belong to the rest of the house, almost like I stepped into a completely different world. Eventually, the tour had ended, but my strange feeling toward the guest room and attic didn't. The more and more time I spent at the sorority house, the deeper my paranormal experiences grew. There was one night I was alone in the house with the other sister. Everybody had left for summer vacation. My sorority sister and I happened to be visiting the college town, so we decided to meet up for a wine night at the sorority house. Sitting at the kitchen table, which is right next to one of the staircases leading up to the second floor. We're just chatting and goofing around and sipping on our cheap wine, alone in the house at night. That's when we hear a loud thud come from the second floor. We brushed it off, thinking it was just the house settling. We continued to have a good time, and then we heard the thud again and the sound of something metal dragging across the floor above us. We sat and listened quietly for a bit. The dragging stopped, but the sound of footsteps on the creaky floor soon followed. The footsteps sounded like they were coming closer to the top of the staircase. I looked at my sorority sister dead in the eyes, and we both knew that we needed to get out of the kitchen, away from the stairs. So we ran into the living room and sat on the couch, staring into the kitchen. Some time had passed since the noises had stopped, so we decided to go investigate. We walked up the stairs and investigated the bedrooms and bathrooms. There was no sign of a disturbance until we went into the second floor kitchen. On the floor of the kitchen were two metal baking sheets that looked like they had fallen out of the cupboard. The cupboard door was open and one baking sheet was found all the way across the kitchen floor. The other one was found underneath the kitchen table. Picked up the baking sheets, closed the cupboard, and got the hell out of the sorority house for the night because we were so freaked out. Next, my sorority decided to do a giant sleepover at the house for a bonding experience. After playing games and watching movies, we decided to turn in for the night at roughly 2 a.m. The only beds that were left open were the two twin beds in the dreaded guest room. Everyone hated sleeping in the guest room because it felt so creepy in there. But I was so tired I didn't care where I slept at this point. And as I was falling asleep, I could feel someone gently pulling on the blanket from the end of the bed. Thinking it was a prank, I switched to the bedside lamp just to see maybe who was pulling on the blanket. And then I saw no one was there. I brushed it off as being tired. Tried to fall back asleep. About an hour-ish had passed and I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the creaky floorboard steps to the attic. My blanket completely fell off the bed. The footsteps were really loud, almost like stomping. Sat up staring at the door when the doorknob to the attic started moving on its own. The door started shaking. There's a chain door guard in the door, so it'd be hard for somebody to be on the inside of the attic with the guard still in place. Felt like an eternity before I felt comfortable enough to leave the bed to sleep somewhere else. The next morning, I'm telling some of my other sisters about the attic door. Somebody else had shared with me that they had an awful nightmare that night about a man trying to get them to come into the attic. She said that the man in her dream felt evil. Another one of my sisters mentioned that there was a journal that had a collection of paranormal stories that had happened since my sorority moved into the house. That's since the 90s. I flipped through some of them and I can share a few of the stories. SparkNote version. 1. There was a story of two sorority sisters that were getting ready for a party in the downstairs living room. They had a mirror leaning against the wall so they could do their makeup in better lighting. In the reflection of the mirror, they saw a figure of a woman briskly move into the kitchen. They quickly got up to see who else was home, but when they went into the kitchen, no one was there. 2. One time, a sister was in the downstairs bathroom getting ready for bed during the summer. No one else was home. Heard a male and female's voice have a muffled conversation above the room that she was in. Walls are paper thin. She thought this was weird because you couldn't have any men over after 8 p.m. In the sorority house, she thought that she was the only one home. Upon investigation, no one else was in the house. No windows were open either. Many stories in the journal of things disappearing in the house and reappearing in really weird places. Weirdest one was someone's hairbrush was missing, only to be found on the attic stairs. Lights would turn on and off randomly and the door would open and close by themselves. The guest room door being the most common. Lastly, a group of sorority sisters were watching TV in the living room when they heard shuffling across the kitchen floor upstairs. Few of them went upstairs to look around to find a source of the noise, and the kitchen stairs were rearranged and almost all the cupboards and drawers were open. There's so many more stories I could tell about this house. I just told the most notable ones in my opinion. My sorority recently decided just to move out of the whole house. After roughly 25 years of residing here, hopefully our new home will be a little more quiet. I hope one day I can move to anywhere a little more quiet too. Sweet dreams.